water truck came. It was driven by Mr. Pendanski, who also brought snack lunches. Stanley sat with his back against a pile of dirt and ate. He had a bologna sandwich, potato chips, and a large chocolate chip cookie. How you doing? Asked Margaret. Not really good, said Stanley. Well, the hardest, Margaret said. Stanley took a long deep breath. He couldn't afford to dawdle. He was way behind the others, and the sun just kept getting hotter. It wasn't even noon yet, but he didn't know if he had the strength to stand up. He thought about quitting. He wondered what they would do to him. What could they do to him? His clothes were soaked with sweat. In school he had learned that sweating was good for you, but it was nature's way of keeping you cool. So why was he so hot? Using his shovel to support, he managed to get to his feet. Where are we supposed to go to bathroom? He asked Margaret. Margaret gestured with his arms to great expanse around them. Pick a hole, any hole, he said. Stanley staggered across the lake, almost falling over a dirt pile. Behind him, he heard Margaret say, "But first, make sure nothing living in it." After leaving Myra's house, Elliot wandered aimlessly through the town until he found himself down by the wharf. He sat on the edge of the pier and stared down into the cold black water. He could not understand how Myra had trouble deciding between him and Igor. He thought she loved him. Even if she didn't love him, couldn't she see what foul person Igor was? It was like Madame Zeroni had said. Her head was as empty as a flower pot. Some men were gathering on another dock, and he wanted to see what was going on. A sign read, "Dock hands wanted, free passage to America." He had no sailing experience, but the ship's captain signed him aboard. The captain could see that Elliot was a man of great strength. Not everybody could carry a full-grown pig up the side of a mountain. It wasn't until the ship had cleared the harbor and was heading out across the Atlantic that he suddenly remembered his promise to carry Madame Zeroni up the mountain. He felt trouble. He wasn't afraid of the course. He thought that was a lot of nonsense. He felt bad because he knew Madame Zeroni had wanted him to drink from the stream before she died. Zero was the smallest kid in Group D, but he was the first one to finish digging. "You are finished?" Stanley asked enviously. Stanley asked enviously. Zero said nothing. Stanley walked to Zero's hole and watched him measure it with his shovel. The top of his hole was perfect circle, and the sides were smooth and steep. Not one dirt cold more than necessary had been removed from the earth. Zero pulled himself up the surface. He didn't even smile. He looked down at the perfectly dug holes bed in it, then turned and headed back to the compound. Zero's one weird dude, said Zigzag. Stanley would have laughed, but he didn't have the strength. Zigzag had to be the weirdest kid dude Stanley had ever seen. He had a long, skinny neck and a big round head with wild, fuzzy blonde hair that stuck out in all directions. His head seemed to bob up and down on his neck like it was on a spring. Armpit was the second one to finish digging. He also spat into his hole before heading back to the camp compound. One by one, Stanley watched each of the boys spit into his hole and return to the camp compound. Stanley kept digging. His hole was almost up to his shoulders, although it was hard to tell actually where ground level was because his dirt piles completely surrounded the hole. The deeper he got, the harder it was to raise the dirt up and out of the hole. Once again he realized he was going to have to move his piles. His cap was stained with blood from his hands. He felt like he was digging his own grave.